As Goran mentioned, I work at the moment as a director of Open Society Initiative for Europe, which is part of the Open Society Foundations, a big foundation dealing mainly actually with civil society. Most of my work is civil society in Europe, both East and West, or probably I should say East, West, North and South. I mean, as Freud once mentioned, not small differences, and we in Europe, we definitely subscribe to that division. There are a lot of that definition. There are a lot of divisions in Europe. But in a way, I've spent 5 years here in this building as an educational advisor. My youth work goes way beyond that, before and after that. And the last 12 years, I've been actually mainly dealing with the general civil society issue, including actually giving grants and supporting youth organizations. So, what I would like to use the next hour is actually, it's a lot of you, so trying to have a bit of a conversation. In a way, consider that this will be the young to the This Morning's Commission yin. Why I'm saying this? Because I know I work for the Council of Europe. When you're an official, you have actually a certain script to follow, and kudos to the colleagues. They not only follow the script, they provided you a lot of useful information about what's in the document. Now, when you come outside of of the institution that produces the document, you of course have the freedom to read it creatively and openly. So I went through the 64 pages, or rather 48, because the last one, the budget, I skipped, as most of you probably will do. And I tried to think, okay, what does it mean, and how that squares with the Europe that I see. And that Europe is not only as a grant maker to the civil society, but also as a political analyst, and let's not forget, somebody who's been living here in Budapest, which I'm joking, like Budapest is much more than Viktor Orban, and Hungary is much more than just one political party or one narrative. But nevertheless, we should not forget that there are a lot of things that are happening in Europe, and we should pay attention. So let's move with the. I have this, okay, and I click with the next slide, I suppose. Right. There we are. So, basically, what I saw and what I'd like to do is the following. I looked 30 billion euros. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Not all of it will go into your pocket. That will go into higher education. First big thing. Still we're putting money in this institution that actually will never reach the people that will vote for some of the faces that I will show later in this presentation. But I thought, okay, look, there's a lot about citizenship. There's a lot about youth participation. There's a lot about different things. But what will be my lenses to do? And I took lenses totally outside of the youth field. I thought, okay, what are the topics that actually keep me busy, that keep actually most of progressive Europe today busy? Fairness, solidarity, and activism. They're not, of course, there's many more than that, but I thought this will be appropriate to use as a lens. And I would like to use the next hour that we sort of try to go beyond sort of the bureaucratic, although I know that all of us will have to grapple with that, beyond the technical, and think a bit more about the political. And I hope you will take it as a provocation. The reason why I talk about fairness is because most of populism and most of the protest today in Europe is around the issue of something has wrong happened to me, and most of the time it's not me to blame but somebody else. From refugees to neighbors to anybody else. The issue of solidarity is really, I almost become obsessive about it, because I see a Europe where actually a lot of Europeans have a feeling or an emotion of solidarity, but somehow they treat it as if it is a commodity that has quantity. That is like, oh, I have one solidarity check to give, and I'm going to give it to my nationalistic cause, and then immediately that means I can't be European, and so on. And really, as much as it makes me sad, but also puts me into a challenge of how they could turn it around. And then activism, I work a lot with civil society organizations, and we witness a great wave of activism throughout Europe, from Spain to Italy, Germany, many other also smaller places, Croatia here next door, even here in Hungary. And very little of that was driven by NGOs. And I look at it with a positive eye. But now it has to be integrated in the work where, not only a lot of money, but a work that formerly is linked to the field of youth, and actually formally has instruments to help those, but it's not. And it's not you. It's, I think, everybody, all of us, we have to find a way how to engage these cool activists who would like to be volunteers for 6 months and then move to do something else, and they don't have patience for more. And I think a lot of questions. So let us jump into the first MOOC, which is I'm asking you today. And we'll do the Mentimeter. So take your whatever phones, iPads, or computers. I would like to ask you the first question, and this is also a test. I mean, it's almost like a dumb question, but it's a test, like to test also the Mentimeter. So look at the target group. Look at the young people. What matters more to them? Emotions. So we have the choices are emotions, data effects, or neither. Don't vote twice. You can't. You will get your VPN. You have to be more skillful than that. Just to read the system.
You want to bet?
I've done that at the Brussels Forum. I broke their voting. Don't do that. Okay, done. You see emotions, no? Okay. Now, how much emotion? Who has read the 64 pages or the 48 or the 8 pages of substance in it? I have a few. How much emotion did you see there? No? There is? Okay, let's test it. Let's go with the second one. Now this is a serious question. So obviously to young people emotions matter, at least according to you here in this room. So let's go with the Mentimeter about contemporary Europe. So what is the most powerful emotion? Which one is the most powerful emotion that you think that is driving today, that is most powerful in Europe today?
All ages.
Yeah, not young people. No. We established that you think that young people care about emotions. Now I'm asking you, everybody in Europe, what emotion drives Europe? Okay, I think pretty clear what you think of that. Now, let me just step a bit back. I mean, because you probably noticed, but I jumped at the beginning. I didn't want to explain it. You saw that in the title of my presentation there was the adjective aging, and you see that now I'm driving you to actually emotions. It's a choice, and I'll explain that choice. So first of all, talking about aging. When I look at Europe today, that's not only me, actually that's not the emotion, that's the hard fact. This is a fast aging continent. If you look in the last, from 1996 to 2016, the median age of a European, that is the European, inside the European Union, has grown for more than 6 years. So a median European now is 42.7 years of age. If you look at the most dominant group of people in Europe, they will be above 40. In 96, they were under 34. Now, why this is important? It's important because actually when you deal with young people, you will deal necessarily maybe with the potential, with the future of the continent, but in political terms, you will deal with minority. Because to politicians and to the market, this will be a smaller market than the market for 40 plus. That is the market to sell or the market to win votes. And I think that's really important because actually that changes the whole approach. That means when these guys will sit down on various councils as they will do at the end of this month in Brussels, you know, and when they will start trading horses and budgets and billions and so on, you know, they will look, who are my voters? And they will say, oh, my voters are 42 and plus, so let's give to them. And this is, you know, this is not to scare you, although you identified fear as the key force driving Europe. I just wanted, I'm not going to scare you. Throughout the presentation I will get much more into the positive territory, but I just simply want to raise an important aspect of where we are. So we are at a point where in Europe, actually, it's a significant direction of becoming less young, less youthful, and also, and maybe we can go with the next slide, is also a Europe that many of us, I believe, all of us, don't want to see them, but you know, these are some of the contemporary leaders. You can go with the next one, so not to be with Mr. Orban home, you know, and apologies to all the Italian friends and colleagues around the table. I could have chosen, you know, each country will find one that was just a random thing, you know, and to the Polish and to the German, so we go on. So, in many ways, when we read programs like this, I believe we should not think about the fear that drives. That's not my intention. Although I could have organized my presentation fully around the fear, and I would have probably been as populist as these leaders. But we have to think of actually what and how programming like this, how resonates or doesn't resonate. And does it address the people who will basically tick the box of this type of leaders? And if we don't reach them, or if you don't reach them with your work, the question is why and for what reason. Sometimes there will be really good reasons not to reach them. So don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you should go and talk to them, but you have to really go and think through. And very few of them will be immediately lining up for the exchanges that you organize. And regrettably, also very few of them will speak the language that you speak. They won't be able to sit down and write a simple application and get through all the quality checks that you all hold dear. But by the same token, they will be able to organize on the street tens of thousands of young people that will actually promote the cause. And I think that poses a very sort of important moment and a very important not only dilemma, it's a both professional and political dilemma of where and how you engage further. And now let me drop another thing, which you all, even those who haven't read the program, know about it. And that is that the program is so ambitious that it doubles the amount of money, but it triples the number of recipients. And, you know, I see some smiling faces, but it's like a sweet sour smile, because everybody knows, oh great, we get double the money. By the way, for those who read the budget, the double the money comes much later, and many of you won't be in the youth age group when more money will come. Somewhere past 2020. But, look, she's beautiful, but let's move on without one thing. One more thing. I have to think about how to increase the number of people. And this is my second point. I saw look, the populist thing, I opted to go for the negative, just to start from a negative to go to positive. If I ask Italian colleagues about the mayor of Messina, they will probably come with mixed emotions, but they will certainly think about a positive example of a progressive, very unusual leader. If I ask people in Barcelona about Ada Colau and her mayorship, probably they will also come conflicted about it, but with a positive sentiment about that. And other things, you know, Kiska in Slovakia. So there are positive leaders. I really encourage you to Google them and look not only at their pictures, but as well to look at their story. But why is it important? It's important that this is a photo that made the Twitter a few days ago. Probably all of you. If you haven't seen the original, I'm sure you've seen a lot of the funny ones made. It's important to take a note that the Western democracy is where it is. And instead of lamenting about it, I think the instruments, such as the one that you are actually in charge of, should provide a vehicle to start actually discussing it and to start improving it. And this is a democracy. I work for a foundation that in a way promotes open society, very much about democracy. I have a bad product to advertise right now. Because everybody who asks, really? And democracy gave us that leader there in the corner? The blondie guy there?
Hey.
Yeah, democracy gave Now, let me get back serious now. No, about this, we have to also look at what are the end products. We have to look at seriously at criticism and what and where we are. And I know that the programming is a lot of things that you are not able to do because of limitations. And to be fair, European Commission is a competent bureaucracy that actually has to serve the politicians rather than unsettle them. But don't forget, unlike others, you work with a lot of good youth organizations and with a lot of dedicated and actually young people full of values that are willing to move anyhow. And willing to move not because of the money that they get, but because of the passion that they have. And the money and the vehicles that you have will help them do it. Now, let's move from this green picture with so many men on it, and let's look a bit at where does the program stand today. So, let's go with the next Mentimeter. So, the next question that I have for you is when you look at the program, and it's a bit more complicated because it's when you look now at the program, from whatever you heard from the presentation today, those of you who have read, think about how much that program is informed by the contemporary politics in Europe today. To what extent it disregards events that are happening in the politics of the European Union, or maybe neither, or you simply take it as a budgeting exercise. This is what we have to do because we're just continuing to sort of sail the ship that we've sailed for many decades now. But I think we don't have anything to hide. But what's important is actually let's look at the numbers and think of what's our sense about it. Because I think it's important because you get a lot of technical programs, you get a lot of work, and then you spend 90% of your time with a lot of important daily tasks. But you have to make sure that this 10% is looking a bit of the broader picture. So I just want to get you a sense. This is a moving picture of where we are in this. And you say it is a continuation to fit into building a single market and utopian vision of the European citizen. That's an interesting thing. I put it on purpose utopian. So it's not there by chance. It's not a slip of tongue. It's actually on purpose. Let's do one more of these teasers, and then I will ask you to actually turn to your tables and discuss it. But please, I see a lot of you taking photo of this. Take a photo of this because we will need it for the next discussion. But before we go into that, let's ask the next Mentimeter, which is about what's the most powerful aspect of the draft program of the Erasmus 21-27. And we have building of European citizenship and citizenry, improving pan-European interconnectedness, being a backbone of member states supporting its own work with young people, so a really important instrument to support youth work at the national level, building a skillful workforce for the single European market, or all of the options. I gave you, you have a bailout there. If you really feel strongly about something, it's enough to feel strongly that 51% is about that, and click that option. We need to get a bit of sense or nuance. With politics, and you look at the votes and how it goes up and down. Okay, now let's move beyond sort of the coolness of the tool, and it's not mine, it's theirs. I would like now to these last two things, the last two things that we had about the, we don't have more Mentimeters, no, do we? No, we don't.
One at the end.
One at the end, yeah. So, I would like to ask you now to go back to the tables and reflect, 10-15 minutes with your colleagues about these two last aspects. So about the sort of, first of all, I drive you to the emotion. Is there one emotion that you can take out from this program or the work we do with you through Erasmus Plus? If not, look at the other side, look at the data, look at the facts. And then I also would like you to reflect on what you saw as the results of the Mentimeter, like what your colleagues felt that is the most important aspect of it, and to what extent is informed or lacks to be properly informed about what's happening in the contemporary European political space. So it's unfacilitated, just turn your tables like 10-15 minutes, and then we want to have one more presentation, so this is more for you to get a sense about your colleagues' response. I'll ask each table to maybe provide a couple of snippets of the discussion. Okay, is it clear? These are the suggestions for your.
So the Mentimeter again, last
Yeah.
time? Yeah, just the result of the previous.
I just keep the questions for a while.
Okay, we'll keep the questions. Let's take a note of the questions, and then we'll bring back the Mentimeter for you to see the. Okay, are the instructions clear? Yes. Okay, then please engage. I know that lunch is approaching, and you will start having thoughts about food, but I hope that this is good food for thought, so let's have your blood first in the brain. It's not a discussion that I expect that you come to a conclusion. It's rather more for you to hear different opinions, and maybe also to satisfy a bit your curiosity what others clicked on this Mentimeter and the diverse results. So, give me some snippets. I mean, something that maybe surprised you from what you heard from the colleagues. Raise your hand.
We were discussing also. I mean, we started talking about actually how bizarre in a way or unusual it is to think about the program in terms of emotion, and really what does that mean? Not only about how we relate to the program, we expect we shared some like frustration, connection, but also then really looking at what the program really tries to promote, and then how the hell can we end up with Aquarius situation? How this dichotomy in a way with all this human connected type of emotion, and at the same time having really more political, I would say, dimension, and both are okay, but really how sometimes they actually contradict or at least are not in line and connected. And I said we went much also further into what we should be able to do and how to really reach the people that we are absolutely never confronted to and we don't work with, and that this is really our challenge also. But and then we talk more about it.
Thanks. Any response, any snippet from your conversation from that side of the room? Further? No, it's not horrible. Come on. No, this continent has seen horrible things. This is not horrible.
I think we were just kind of more talking about the program really being so driven by the you were talking about being aware of the political side and actually the reaction of it to voters and to those, and those underlying ripples that although there might be a lot of needs analysis go on and things, you can't ignore the fact that the last version of the program was, seemed to be very strongly linked to the crisis and the financial crisis and unemployment, skills gaps. And we can feel the ripples of the current political situations in the bones of this program. And I think the worry is that that as a reactive model, it comes with a lot of bureaucracy that doesn't necessarily then mean that you can react to some of those realities, because it takes time and the bureaucracy can sometimes really impede you getting further. Yeah.
That was well put.
Thanks. I'll take one word from what you said, the reactive thing. I think it's really important because actually I don't think that now is the time to be reactive to what happened in Europe in the last 10 years since the onset of the financial crisis. On the contrary, I do believe that this program should give a space for doing something proactively. And I'll speak a bit about that. Let me, unless there is a burning desire to share something, let me continue with what I would be. Sorry, where does it go? Do I?
It's frozen.
Yeah, frozen.
This is frozen.
Okay. Yeah. So exactly, document is a document. Actually, it's a lot of leads. Don't forget, these are documents where the bullet points, and the bullet points give you a mandate, but then you have to really fill them with a lot of content. And I think that's both the beauty and the peril of bureaucracy, and also the beauty and the peril of a space like European Union, because that means that the freedom is given for good things, but also the freedom is given for the politically not desirable things. I mean, where actually you can instrumentalize that tool, and especially for the colleagues here around the table from national agencies, there will be a lot of politics to actually grapple with about what will be the sort of the goals of the government in place. And subsidiarity is good on paper. Implementing it in reality is much more difficult. Now, very few snippets just to give you a sense, and you don't need to read this. I just put it also for my own reminder. The document is written very much also with the spirit of we have to double down our effort to build a European identity, and actually to build a European citizenry. And that's a cause that I personally applaud, and I believe that most of you here, or if not all, applaud, and a lot of people in Europe want to do that. Then the second thing, if you take out of that, is the issue of inclusiveness. And the issue of, who are the people who, for example, in England, who are the people that are left behind, be that by the economic crisis, or be that by other forms of exclusion or discrimination that they face into their society. And then trying to reach out to us. Now, the hope is a good part of it, which is the building of responsible Europeans. And responsible Europeans mean that they take note of their own national identity, they take note of their own individual circumstances and the situation in which they live, but also they build not only their mental map, but they build their lives, which goes with this plus element. But this doesn't come without a fear, especially in the societies where there is a sharp division between camps. I'll talk later about the solidarity on this particular point. But imagine when you put this in front of someone who says, no, for me it's most important that my nation is the strongest. From winning the World Cup to whatever, being the bravest in the history of humankind. And this is something which is force-fed also through the national political and not only political, educational and other systems. And I think this is really important because then a program like this will run into either as a countercurrent or will simply fuel those divisions. And I think it's important to take into consideration. I think it's our Czech colleague over there, no? You're from Czech Republic, yeah?
I'm from Finland.
From Finland. No? Is anybody from Czech Republic here? Do we have anybody from Czech Republic? Yeah, the latest election map in Czech Republic is such a beautiful example where you have all these islands, i.e. Prague and a couple of other big cities, of, let's say, democratic pluralistic vote, and then everybody else is populist. So, for example, if you speak with the multiculturalism, if you speak with the pro-Europeanists, you speak only to these few cities, and then everybody else gets alienated. And I think that's really important to have a note. And frankly speaking, it's much harder also to ramp up numbers when you have to go with locations. I'll come back to that. The other thing that I want to notice is that this continuation. I know it's European Union, so it's European Union, it's European Commission. If they don't mention the market, they get minus. They cannot get a pay cut. They get a minus, so they have to mention the market. It's important, but we should not forget that the market, with all the drives that it brings, has its own limitations. And I think that's important both politically, but also as sort of a goal, with the youth dimension. Why I'm saying this? I'm saying this as someone who really spent a lot of time working in this country, but also working on Poland and other countries where actually we can go statistically with hard facts, not emotion, hard facts that everybody lives better. Their quality of life is better, the economic development is better. Poland has registered actually increase into GDP and GDP per capita, and has actually taken more people out of poverty zone than any other Eastern European country, while actually politically it has digressed from pluralistic standard to something else. Let me not label it right now, but I think why this is important, because we know that the European Commission will have to feed into the mantra, but I think for you, the people on the ground, European market, yes, great. Young people as skillful workers integrated into the market, yes, great, but to a certain point, and not as the sufficient cause. And I think that's really important to mention it, and that's why actually, if one thing you remember about this, it's not only about the emotion, but it's the emotion that runs with the identity, and often it trumps a lot of rational choices that people would make. Now, I promise you fairness, solidarity, and activism. What one can do about it. And I'm jumping from like high-level politics, populism, and so on, to a bit closer to your programming. It's a bit of a big jump, but I just want you to know that, again, this should not paralyze us. I have a friend, a colleague who used this expression, deer in the headlights. You know how deers freeze and then they get hit when they see the headlights? And again, in this moment, this is exactly what people that deal with youth, with young people, like yourself, and people who consider themselves progressive should not act like. It's on the contrary. They should be proactive. Now, what does it mean? You identify, and here's just like a sort of a huge list of various divisions that run through contemporary Europe. And those divisions will be subject, not all of them, but some of them will be subject to actually your own work. They will be subject to the daily lives of the young people that you will bring into the program. And I think what we have to do, I will gladly share in this slides, this is nothing super original, something you can find this in a lot of different places, but I can share the slides if you want to have the list of the various divisions. But I think what you have to do is actually how we can put them into a positive narrative. And what is the positive narrative? And that's why I picked the word reactive to sort of proactive. So, for example, when we talk about these people who maybe have the job, maybe have the income, but they think, well, wait a second. 25 years ago, or whatever, when the Berlin Wall fell, we were promised that Hungarians will be the new Austrians and Polish will be the new Germans. And today I wake up, I'm not a German, I'm not an Austrian. Actually, one would say, really? Is this what you want to be? But one has to engage with what actually these people want to be and how and where they want to be. I think this is important. I'll speak more about the citizenship because I think we have to figure it out how to build in not nationalism but patriotism into the youth work. As much as I personally do not find it endearing as a value for myself. And the other thing is, how you engage unusual groups. Church. Right? It entertains me to mention as somebody who, I like to say, with all due respect to religion, I don't belong to that NGO. But that NGO runs important aspects of people's lives. And if they don't know how to write an application for your program, I think you better go out and train them. Because also, don't do positive discrimination. That's also bad. Because if you do positive discrimination, we know that they can run the numbers, but they don't know how to run an application. Then actually, you're doing a disservice to the NGOs that know how to write an application. But I think you have to go and do that. Folklore. Another favorite of mine, because frankly I couldn't care less. I was thinking really hard what I care less, but I see in life it's important. down Budapest, there's a folklore festival every single week. You look at actually exchanges and what happens. People like their identity. You go to Austria, you get a lecture in every single district and every single federal state of how the dress is different, you know, from Carinthia to Styria and so on. And you know what? Maybe you don't care whether their color is green or light blue, but if this is something what they care and it actually drives people into it, I think one has to engage. I think that's one message that I have for you is actually to think in your way, to think how not to fit in with your already existing divisions, because you may also support groups that will simply increase the divisions. That's the other way around, and then you will lose. Especially in places where, let's say, the less progressive side is much more advanced, because then whenever you feel divisions, you're on the losing side. You have to really think of how you find these bridges, and often that won't be in a package. My favorite example is that in my grant making, we had to engage with Jesuits, who actually want to do women's rights in Hungary here. Well, long story, I will spare you from that. But you know, if you think about that, a part of the denomination, all the church, a lot of different controversial things, certainly not in Open Society Foundation's corner. A lot of things we disagree with. But they identify that actually the place of women in this very society has gone really bad, and they want to address it. Good. You know what? That doesn't mean that there are not a dozen or more capable civil society organizations that deal with human rights. Actually, they're more capable than the Jesuits. But where they're not more capable is actually having an access to 600 different schools and actually working with them. And I think we have to start thinking, pricing that value, the value of access versus the value of competence, and as well the way how you train some of those people that maybe you will not disagree. Look, the next day if we talk about abortion, we will not only disagree, we will fight each other about the opinions. So I'm talking about Open Society Foundations and most of the Christian denominations. But on an issue that we agree, we have to work with it. And I think these are the shifting alliances that one has to think about that. The other thing about fairness, it's very interesting. You heard me talking about the market and so on. We all in this program, and many others, and I consider myself a veteran of civil society organizing, we focus on the citizen. Well, parallel to us, there is a consumer. Actually, there is more consumers than citizens in this continent, even if it pains me to admit. Then, do we engage them? Even if we do not like the fact that they're not the sort of the great citizens with understanding of public life and contribution to it. I would think, and I would actually think of you to identify in your own localities what are the issues that actually people really pain or people take note as consumers and start engaging. You will be surprised, and I'm sure that all of this will be positive surprise, how often the jump from I care about my own consumer rights will move to, oh, I want to organize now to solve this issue, or I want to organize to actually engage into more political issues. It jumps. I gave you an example of predatory lending because this is so far from, for example, what I do in my daily life, that when the proposal came, we were like, predatory lending? Well, this is like, these payday loans, so many people go into poverty because of this. And, this is something that Open Society Foundation should do. We're about democracy, not about it. But it turns out that so many people not only care, but they actually, their lives are significantly worse because they get into indebtedness. So if we help them organize in that indebtedness to basically solve their primary problem, then the organization stays, they will move to another issue. And my suggestion is really to look about that. Young people often are actually at the forefront of this thing. I mean, predatory lending sounds sci-fi to you. Think of a Dutch person in Amsterdam paying 2,000 euros for a sofa for their living room and then ending up to return 5,000 euros because they couldn't afford to return the sort of this short-term loan. And I think probably I don't need to explain to a lot of people. You just open the TV. In most countries, you will find all these things of oh, you want to go on holidays? Get our money. It's cheap. It's easy. They don't explain that around winter they will come with people to take you out of the flat if you cannot return your money. And it's 2% of the total market of money in Europe. So it's actually insignificant to the policy, but it could affect 12 to 15%. So, this is an example from my work. I'm not saying that you should work on predatory lending, but you have to find what is the issue that is close to the people as consumers. And I think young people increasingly operate with that. Not to my pleasure, but that's sort of, we have to take it as something that we have to work with. On solidarity, I have one point to make. The populists that you saw earlier on the photos, and many others, have made one thing really painfully difficult in this continent. And that is basically how to reject the notion that solidarity between communities, identity groups, and nations is in opposition to solidarity within places, identities, and countries. Or, translated in simple things, how I could be a really patriotic Hungarian, but that doesn't mean that I cannot be devoted European. Or how I love my community, and I'm sorry I'm using Hungary, Austria, simply because of geography, or kind of a Google map. You identify yourself where you are, and you get all the commercials around that place. Or Austria, how they identify with the region. Great. I mean, look, many of these things actually are positive. Most people will not be die-hard nationalists, will not hear. But the whole thing is that the political part of the political spectrum has convinced these people that it's a zero-sum game. That if you become a devoted European, you cannot be die-hard supporter of your country. In so many ways, not true. So when we talk about the sort of the proactive versus reactive, to me this is not about actually reaction to the populist speech. It's more actually how you build these models through your training work, through your exchanges and so on, where you find that this is possible to do. And I think this is really important when we talk also about identities, because we live in a continent where the identity is becoming increasingly important. Now, let's not forget, we have I didn't put a color to the elephant, you choose your color, but the elephant in the room, in your virtual room, is the issue of citizenship. And this is, here most colleagues come from the EU, some of you come outside of the EU. You know very well what I'm saying about, when you have a passport of a EU country, when you have a passport of a non-EU country, or a third country. That makes a dramatic difference in what you can access. Inside the European Union, there is also the issue of the entitlement between different member states. But also, and increasingly, the sort of the influx of refugees and migrants brought the debate about who is entitled to get into the citizenship as let's say, a legal right. Now, I know that all of in your programming, it doesn't talk about the legality of it. It talks about the sense of it. But if a lot of people, because of politics, are driven to the legality of it, and they vote for an option to limit that right, we cannot turn a blind eye. And that's why I think it's important that basically one has to really think of how this will go beyond. And I mentioned Brexit, but don't forget, so far everybody was considered to be a small place. A lot of people say, oh, European and EU is the same. And although Ukraine is not a small country, we say, okay, but it's Ukraine. It sort of belongs, so it doesn't belong to the European space. After UK leaves the European Union, there will be European, where the UK people from the UK will say, wait a second, no, this doesn't mean EU-ian, which will open even more about a discussion about the citizenship and entitlement. So, give it a pause on that. Last thing about language. We know that increasingly more and more Europeans speak various languages. But still, when you look at the statistics, they're green. In many places, they're green. Not many Europeans speak many languages. I know it costs a lot of money, but I would really, really ask you to think in the programming to pay the bill of translation. Some, not always, but pay the bill of translation. I know that some of you are doing it. I know some of them also find creative ways to reach regions that do share languages, but I think in Europe we really have to go and really think of beyond those usual links. We know that Austrians and Germans will sit down and speak, in spite of all their various accents, we'll find a common language pretty easily. But we will be able to get the Portuguese to explain what does it happen in a non-austerity country to the Swedes. And I think that's a bit important to foster that, even and maybe push the Commission to acknowledge those bills. Last thing about activism. The civil society organizations are important and they have to continue to be supported, especially because now they're a bit on a, we're talking even about two types of civil society, progressive and regressive civil society. And in many countries in Europe, actually, the one on the regressive end are much better organized and even more powerful. But let's not forget that a lot of energy in this continent came from activism. It has to be integrated within the program. Otherwise, we all have to, because activism is not only about the formal organizing, but how to integrate activism without bypassing the NGOs will be, in so many ways, the challenge that many of you will face. And I think, irrespectively how difficult it would be, I have to say, in my daily job, I'm grappling with this. I really encourage you to start grappling with that, because we have to bring the force of the street, especially when young people organize it, in the formal structures. And I know that you will have a presentation of various forms of participation later and so on. I really encourage you also to use some of the knowledge of that session as well, about thinking of how we get this. And mind you, go beyond the news headlines. Spain, when you look at Spain, of course, we all know Podemos. We know that Podemos is one of the results of the M15 movement and so on. But it's not the only one. Actually, there's so much more than the M15 movement brought to Spain and to Europe. It brought the anti-eviction movement, a great spectrum of it. It brought all small local initiatives. There's a wealth of experience of how this energy has been integrated. Now, mind you, there will be the P dilemma, P for political. Sometimes with small p, because these people will go into politics, some of them. Other times with big P, because that means that it will sort of meddle with the partisan politics. So it's not an easy task, but I think it's important to take it. And this is also a way how to move beyond just the urban capitals. Because sometimes both the issue that people grapple with the sort of a movement and lack of organization will bring you there. One last example from Hungary, and I will stop. The foundation that I work for has been supporting for many years also projects outside of the capital. But mainly through competent people, very good people that are based here in the capital. Well, we decided, let's have partners outside of the capital. To be honest, they're very good, they're excellent partners, great. If I go skill by skill, they're not better than the ones in the capital. Actually, those in the capital are better in terms of skills. But the value that we get that they're one of us in those localities is not quantifiable by the skills framework, but on the field is absolutely priceless. Because being one of us means that people identify with these people. Much easier. So in so many ways about the issue about activism is multi-layered. It goes with how you build it in the formal structure, but also how that takes you in the spaces where usually you're not. Okay, now I stop here. Almost in time. Let's do one more Mentimeter on this, because I suggested sort of 3 dimensions, and I want to get you a sense whether any of those merits further inquiry. And now on this, I ask you to be selfish. So, meaning, which of those should be emphasized in the programming, but in the programming that you will do in your country? Okay? So, for you, that is relevant for you. If it's not relevant, you also have an option. That's quick, 56 people, yeah. Oh, obviously, like, we'll get the other, because the other is somebody who will get it on the screen. Okay, so I think, you should have a look, and mind you, these are the 3 choices that I made for this presentation. There are many more choices, so the lenses that you can choose totally different lenses for you. But I think, again, if I think of one thing to sum up this whole presentation is look at the document also with your own eyes and with your basically with what's relevant in your own domain, what issue or what problem, and then even if the document and this programming was not intended to or maybe was intended to be in a sort of reactive mode to the politics, think about where are the issues where you can find your opening. What are the sort of the political forces that you may come against or you may use and so on, and embrace them. That's the thing. Now we're over time. Let's see if we have some questions or maybe some of these other what the colleagues suggested on the Mentimeter. If you allow me, really some quick questions. If you have, I can have.
There was one.
One.
Just one question.
Say the program does not manage that bridge connect. Look a bit at the right-wing parties and the way how they're connected. Just search it. You can find them on the web. You can find them. If you want more, I can give you references for books and more serious research. You know how well connected are they? Extremely well. You know how well organized? Tools, toolkits, sharing, something. Excellent. The music festivals first done in Great Britain and then imported in Eastern Europe and many places, including here. There's a great exchange there. So, don't think that the bridges are made only by you. There are other various bridges. And I think it's good to operate in this pluralistic. Now the question is, in a way, if I use the architectural parallel, how many bridges you need to make yourself, but also how many existing bridges you can use for your own purpose. So when I talk about folklore and churches, and in your case could be something totally different, could be scouts, could be something absolutely relevant for your context and maybe not relevant for others, but they already have their own bridges, they have their own content, they're not using for the goals that you wanna, that you use, but you may actually have an opening, or maybe you will think it's worth it to work with these people to use their bridges for the messages that you. And mind you, again, you will have to each and every time see whether you will be okay with that, because not all of those bridges will have the safety standards prescribed by European Union. Or to put it in other words, not all of those people will agree with you wholesale with the values that the program is to represent. And sometimes you will say, no, this is too hard of a bargain, I cannot agree with it, and it violates some of my programs. But most of the time, I think you will make a mistake and you say, okay, take it or leave it. This is my own package. If you don't share the whole package, I'm not going to work with you. And I think, to me, that's an important. It's a very political message, but also means that your partners will have to engage into much more different and diverse exploring than what they usually are doing. Okay? Time for lunch?
Yes.